Before names were written down, faces were never meant to last. Skin vanished, muscle failed, expression disappeared with breath. What remained was bone, shaped by belief, by labor, by ritual, by survival. In tombs sealed with care and graves forgotten by time, those bones endured while memory did not. Some were prepared for eternity. Some were buried without record. Some were carried far from the land they once called home. For centuries they existed only as fragments, measured, catalogued, and silent, until science allowed us to do something history never intended, to restore a face, not from myth, but from evidence. This is Riddle Me This Mysteries, and this is Episode 8, Reconstructing the Past. She lived in Egypt during the Greco-Roman period, around 2,000 years ago, a time when Egypt was ruled by foreign powers, yet ancient burial traditions still endured. For more than a century after her arrival in Europe, her identity was assumed rather than examined. Modern CT scanning later revealed that the mummy was female, overturning earlier interpretations. Her brain had been removed during mummification, a procedure requiring skill, and one not performed on all burials. What makes her burial unusual is not the wrapping but the skull itself. Fragments of gold leaf were found adhered directly to the bone, not on a mask, not on a coffin, on the skull. In ancient Egyptian belief, gold was associated with the flesh of the gods, a material meant to endure forever. Gold objects were common in elite burials, but applying it directly to the head was rare, and its purpose in this case remains unexplained. Her original burial site was never recorded. By the early 20th century, her mummified head had been transported thousands of kilometers away and stored for decades in an Australian high school. Modern CT scanning allowed researchers to reconstruct her skull digitally without disturbing the remains. From those scans, a physical model was produced. Muscle attachment points were mapped, tissue depth markers applied. The face was rebuilt using forensic standards, without assumptions about skin color, hair, or eyes. What emerged was not a divine image, but an ordinary human face, shaped by age, bone structure, and lived experience. And while this reconstruction reflects belief preserved through ritual, the next face reveals what happens when even science struggles to agree on what it is seeing. For much of its modern history, this mummy was identified by the coffin it lay within. The coffin inscription named a male priest, and the body inside was assumed to match. That assumption went untested. Imaging of the pelvis and skull later confirmed the remains were female, dating to the late Ptolemaic period, around the 1st century BCE. The inscription belonged to someone else, evidence that coffins and identities were sometimes reused. The skull was examined digitally, revealing subtle asymmetries and wear without physically disturbing the remains. From that same skull, 2 facial reconstructions were produced. Both relied on identical bone data and standard forensic methods. What differed were the modeling decisions, how tissue thickness was applied, how muscle volume was interpreted, how age-related features were expressed. Seen side by side, the reconstructions are similar but not identical. They are not portraits, but outcomes of interpretation, constrained by bone, shaped by method. Early analysis of the scans suggested the woman may have been pregnant at death. That claim drew attention, but a later, broader re-evaluation found no reliable evidence to support it. Structures once interpreted as a fetus were more consistent with embalming materials and post-mortem change. The bone did not change, the interpretation did. The next phase comes from a burial, where meaning was expressed not through debate, but through how the body was placed in the ground. Her burial was discovered at Upper Largie in western Scotland, in a stone-lined grave cut into the ground around 4,000 years ago. The body lay on its side, legs drawn in close, a crouched position repeated across Bronze Age burials in the region. This was not a hurried interment. The placement was deliberate, the grave carefully prepared. Objects found nearby situate her within the material world of early Bronze Age Britain, part of a landscape shaped by human use rather than a single event. Osteological analysis indicates she was a young adult, likely in her late 20s or early 30s at death. Isotope evidence suggests she was local to the area, not brought from elsewhere. Examination of her skull presented a different challenge from the faces before it. Parts of the cranium were damaged, and the lower jaw was missing. There was no complete form to work from, only fragments that required digital stabilization before reconstruction could begin. CT scanning produced a three-dimensional model of the skull. Missing sections were rebuilt using anatomical standards, not inference. Tissue depth markers were applied according to age and sex, and musculature was modeled within those limits. The face that emerged was restrained and unremarkable by design. Features were shaped by bone where possible, and left neutral where evidence did not exist. Skin tone, hair, and eye color could not be known and were treated cautiously. This reconstruction does not present status or symbolism. It restores presence. A woman placed deliberately in the ground, now seen again without embellishment. Here, meaning was fixed by deliberate placement in the ground, before the next face forces us to question how that body should even be defined. The remains were discovered in Liang Bua Cave on the Indonesian island of Flores and announced in 2004. They belong to an adult individual, not a child. At just over 1 meter in height, the body was small, yet proportioned as fully grown. The limbs did not match those of modern humans. The arms were long relative to the legs. The feet were flat and elongated, with toes shaped for stability rather than speed. These proportions were not isolated to a single skeleton, but repeated across multiple finds at the site. Examination of the skull added further constraints. Brain volume measured around 426 cubic centimeters, far smaller than in modern humans, yet the cranial shape did not align with known pathological conditions. The proportions were consistent, not damaged or deformed. Before any face could be attempted, limits were set. CT scans provided the skull geometry, but no DNA was available. Soft tissue thickness had to be inferred from comparative hominin anatomy, applied conservatively and without modernizing features. The face that emerged followed the bone closely. The midface was broad. The brow and jaw lacked modern refinement. The result was unmistakably hominin and unfamiliar. The reconstruction did not exaggerate difference. It allowed proportion to remain intact. Stone tools found alongside the remains show planning and repeated use. Evidence of fire indicates control rather than accident. Behavior does not resolve the form. Here, the reconstruction does not restore familiarity. It exposes how narrow our expectations of human shape have become. This face resists familiarity before the story returns to humans whose form was recognizable, but whose history is not. Nothing about this reconstruction needed to be corrected. The skull was well preserved, the mandible remained intact, muscle attachment points were clearly defined, there was little distortion from pressure or time, and few gaps that required resolution. The remains date to Neolithic Sweden, around 4,000 years ago, from a period associated with settled communities and repeated use of landscape rather than singular burial events. The examination was carried out digitally. CT scanning recorded the skull in detail, allowing a physical three-dimensional model to be produced before reconstruction began. From that model, features were built gradually and adjusted in layers, revised repeatedly rather than finalized early. Decisions followed the bone first and stopped where evidence no longer supported them. Limits were established before appearance. No DNA survived to define pigmentation. Hair color, eye color, and expression could not be recovered. Those elements were kept neutral without emphasis. When the structure was complete, the result required no explanation. The face that emerged was immediately recognizable as human, without needing explanation. Proportions aligned naturally. The jaw sat comfortably beneath the cheekbones. The brow followed the skull without exaggeration. Subtle asymmetries remained visible. Nothing was smoothed away. Nothing was corrected to improve likeness. The reconstruction followed the bone where it led, and stopped where it could not go further. This face does not resolve a mystery. It does not introduce doubt. It shows what reconstruction becomes when the evidence cooperates, and when restraint is treated as part of the method. Together, these faces trace not a single past, but a range of ways the dead were treated, understood, and remembered. Some were prepared for eternity, some were misidentified, some were placed carefully in the ground, others challenged the limits of how we define ourselves at all. Across thousands of years, belief, method, and circumstance shaped what survived. Bone endured, meaning shifted, interpretation followed. What we see now is not the past restored, but the closest evidence allows us to stand beside it, face to face, without certainty and without invention.